Okay, Bertha has spoken. Recordings in progress. Welcome, folks. It's been I am going to post this one. So what's the date? Health Alchemy Community Dinner, December 16th. I'm going to be doing a talk tomorrow in San Mateo for the Weston Pricers on how humans harvest sunlight. So if you want more information about this topic, go to go to my YouTube channel, type in sunlight, and you'll get 4 or 5 hits. Last year we had 3 or 4 discussions about how we harvest sunlight, or the vitamin D context. So what I'm going to bring in tonight, just very briefly, is just so you can get a sense of this, and I'm going to record tomorrow's talk for the Weston Pricers, 50 people up in San Mateo. So vitamin D is not what they say it is. So let's start with that. 90 years ago, when they were writing about vitamins, here's a quote from an MD writing about a vitamin. Vitamins are hormone-like substances. They're not chemicals. They're processes of which chemicals are involved. So vitamin D is not a sunlight vitamin. It's a sunlight filter hormone. So vitamin A is your true fat-soluble sunlight vitamin. Vitamin C is your water-soluble sunlight vitamin. So you got a fat-soluble sunlight vitamin, vitamin A, water-soluble C. And so the material I'm speaking from, this is the root cause protocol, Morley Robbins. He has the PowerPoints and all the data to back up what I'm saying tonight from the science. Vitamin D3, when you take it, first of all, why do you want radiated sheep fat? Because that's how they're making D3. Irradiated sheep lanolin.
Oh, I have seen it.
It's fucking disgusting. So when you take D3, people are coming to him. The half-life of D3 when you take it orally is 2 to 3 years before it's out of your body, because it's a hormone. They're selling you the world's only over-the-counter hormone, and they're not telling you that. Hormones are signaling molecules. They're supposed to do their job and get broken down immediately. You don't want it circulating around for 2 or 3 years. So guess what it's doing for 2 to 3 years? It's fucking your mitochondria's ability to metabolize oxygen and iron properly, so the furnace runs too hot, and you end up with oxidative free radicals, which generates high cholesterol downstream. And then what do? They give you a cholesterol-lowering drug, but the fire hasn't been dealt with, and then you calcify is the next step, because if the body can't make the wax, because cholesterol is a wax, it will make a calcification, and then people calcify. And in my world, we can go back to generally, so when your vitamin D3, when you get your lab back, your storage form, 25-hydroxy D3 on your labs is a storage form of D. It has nothing to do with the active form of sunlight. Nothing. So when it's low, it means you have inflammation. So you don't take D3. It's like taking aspirin for a headache. By taking D3, your numbers will go up, but it won't deal with the problem, which is you need some fucking sunlight. Get out of the fucking shade and get in the sunlight, because there's 27 forms of D in sunlight. And you're taking one called D3. Sunlight has D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D9, D10. They're called isomers in chemistry. They're similar forms of the same process. So when you take cod liver oil or eat trout or fish that's high in vitamin D, you get all those 27 forms. Cod liver oil. But when you take D3, your machinery gets all fucked up.
Oh, so you're saying you can take an oil form D3 that's real?
I still give D3. I got clients in Alaska with seasonal affective disorder. So I give them a little D3, only 1,000 or 2,000 IUs. I give them cod liver oil and St. John's works.
What do you think of Nordic Naturals D3?
Garbage.
Really?
It's molecularly distilled. What does that sound like to you? No, molecularly distilled sounds like highly refined. And fish oils are long chain fats. And when you have a long board, doesn't it break easy?
What's a good oil, fish oil here that doesn't?
You can buy anything here.
That's excellent.
It's why I use standard process, because they do an enzyme processed raw cod liver oil.
What do you do?
I take the standard process. I'm taking it right now. It's in my pill box. Standard process cod liver oil.
It's in a pill,
It's in a capsule form, so it's not gross. Yeah.
and it's a liquid capsule.
Yeah, it's like a horse cap. They're pretty big. They have a tuna omega oil, and no, there's no mercury in the
Where do
tuna.
you get them at?
You get them. You go to my website and order it.
Oh, you got it on your website.
I have everything set up now for clickbait. You can go to my website. You can't order it online. You can get it on Amazon. But why would you get it on Amazon? Give them money when you give it to me. Same price. I tell people like, why are you buying shit on Amazon? You can get the same thing on my website. You know, like support one of your buddies. Like you know, you get support. So D3 then causes oxidative damage in the mitochondrial level. It upsets copper and magnesium metabolism, and those are the two control elements. You ever hear about copper? No. So copper controls the mitochondria's oxygen and iron metabolism, which is like throwing wood in the fire. So the copper is like a little bit of water, and the magnesium is the same way. So guess what upsets copper metabolism? D3, zinc, ascorbic acid. All the COVID recommendations fuck with your mitochondria's ability to metabolize energy properly. All the COVID recommendations.
So was that done intentionally?
I don't know. I'm still looking at it. I think it was. You had Mercola talking about it. You had all these big natural people talking about it. I don't know if they're brainwashed or if they're actually, you know, just ignorant.
That's the big thing is
So-
you take D3 as your initial protocol.
So like an easy way to get magnesium is greens. You know, raw chlorophyll has magnesium at the center. And an easy way to get copper is nuts and seeds, shellfish, beef liver is the best source. So you want to get your zinc, but you want to get it with copper in a food base. You want to get your vitamin C from a food base. Ascorbic acid is made from GMO corn syrup. You know that. You know, ascorbic acid is made from GMO corn syrup. It's not vitamin C. It's part of the complex. And then D3, go get some sunlight, folks.
Yeah. What about in the winter?
Cod liver.
Yeah.
You might need a little D3, you know, it's fine.
You can't get any D3.
You got a question?
My kidney doctor said, limit your intake of vitamin C to 1,000. Because you need a lot of ascorbic acid. If it helps more kidney stone. So what I do is I take the pills like a Costco, I get a whole bunch of it. You dump it, ascorbic acid out to water. And that way you're not getting a bunch of acid in your body.
Right.
Reducing the acidity. So it says, if you take 3,000, you're really good. But instead of 1,000, then you're like.
You talking milligrams of ascorbic acid?
Well, instead of 1,000, probably okay. But I'm saying.
That's usually
you
tolerance
your-
level is 1,000.
Your body pH, there's nothing changes when you take ascorbic acid. So I just dump it out of the container. So that you're not changing the pH.
So the point that, so this is being recorded, so just so you know. So we had a question from someone in the store here, and it's about, you know, the D3 and the ascorbic acid. So what I would do, just so you know, ascorbic acid is a copper chelator. It's well known in my field that if you take ascorbic acid pure, you're chelating copper out of the body, which is interfering with your body's ability to metabolize oxygen and iron properly.
Yeah, it's.
So I would never take ascorbic acid. I don't recommend it to anybody, liposomal, anything. You take pure vitamin C from fresh food out of the ground. That's your best source of vitamin C. Fresh plants out of the ground. That is vitamin C. Not this bullshit sugar converted to ascorbic acid. Because what you're taking was sugar, an enzyme was added to it, because sugar and ascorbic acid are only one enzyme different. So I have a theory. I think cancer likes ascorbic acid because it can just click one little enzyme in there and turn it into sugar. I do a lot of cancer therapy. None of my patients get any ascorbic acid, anything.
Yeah, I was looking at Baker Island, you can do quite well on field raised chicken.
I have never seen a good result in any cancer patient with ascorbic acid injected or orally. I have seen results with fresh juices though, like the Gershon protocol, wheatgrass juice, raw liver, and coffee enemas is the cornerstone of that program, or the Kelly program, pancreatic enzymes, raw food,
Well,
get your metabolic type.
It's about a 5 fruit mixture on their juice.
You're what?
The Gerson protocol is about 5 different fruits, I think.
Oh, it's way more
And
advanced. What I do is I tell people like everybody's overwhelmed. So the simple protocol is, yeah, you want a vegan diet mostly. The new Gershon stuff doesn't really incorporate the liver as much, but they were doing liver juice back in the day, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They were just juicing the liver and drinking that with wheatgrass and doing coffee up their rear end. And they were getting fantastic results. Because that's my career. I spent 35 years. Who's getting results and why? I don't give a fuck about your science. If you're not getting results, I don't give a fuck. You know, so you're getting results, let's figure out why you're getting results. You know, because that's what we should be studying. It's who's getting results, and let's figure out why. Anything else doesn't matter.
So in order to get some copper in your diet, or that chelator, like keep your vitamin D level or some level, mid level, according to like med cramp, you can reduce, let's say,
Vitamin D levels. So how are they measuring your vitamin D levels?
how are they measuring it?
Because there's two ways to measure vitamin D. There's calcitriol, which is the active form of D in your bloodstream, and that's never measured. And then there's 25 hydroxy D3, which is the storage form. That has nothing to do with the active form. Nothing at all. No.
They don't measure calcium.
We have a nation of ignorant, brainwashed people thinking they know what they're talking about. But I've got the proof that D3 damages the mitochondria. This is all studied back in 80, 90 years ago, 70, 80 years ago. So my point is that we've been led astray, and D3 might be okay short term, but I would never give it, nor would I give ascorbic acid long term. There are nutraceuticals you use like drugs in the short term for 3 months.
Are you saying that Linus Pauling was wrong?
Yeah, he was.
Really?
Yeah, he was. He was. The man who came before him, who got the Nobel Prize, Shorgy, whatever, he's the one who actually discovered C. Yeah, Shorgy, right? The German guy, dude. Here's the quote. He said, you cannot cure scurvy with ascorbic acid. And he was the founder of C, not Pauling. Huh? You need
So
the
what cures
flavonoids,
then?
you need the copper. But copper is part of the C complex. A lot of people don't know that.
When during the 1700s on, when they started taking citrus with them, so they wouldn't get scurvy.
Limey, right? They used to call the sailors
Lime,
limeys,
yeah.
right?
So the limes, the natural form of C, plus it had copper, other
Everything, right?
minerals in it.
And limes and lemons last a long time. It's a good thing to take on a boat, right? Because they'll last for months. I mean, if it's not hot, if it's
So
hot,
it's
they'll
not
last.
just the vitamin C that was curing the scurvy, is what you're saying.
It was the flavonoids, the copper,
Right.
tyrosinase is an enzyme in whole food C. There's the ascorbic acid. That's like the antioxidant wrapper of the complex. If you look at C as a complex, and there's all these things inside, and then the antioxidant wrapper is ascorbic acid. So by taking, it's like having a present with nothing inside.
Right.
I want a present with the good thing inside. Royal Lee used to say, the founder of Standard Process used to say, a vitamin is like a watch, you know, those old watches with all the gears and the solenoids and whatnot. He said, what they've done is they've taken the watch apart and taken all the moving parts out, putting the face of the watch back on, and called out the vitamin.
Yeah, I noticed some multivitamins, the B12 is way above the USDA requirement.
Way higher, right?
And
Way
that
higher.
one doctor was kicked out of doctor's on duty, turning me in. And, well, she was telling me about B12, and say, well, we're not allowed to say certain things in here about it.
Wow.
Yeah,
So here's B12, is an interesting take on B12. The founder of Standard Process has B12 in a mineral supplement. So what's the mineral part of B12? The Latin name of B12 is cyanocobalamin.
Cobalt.
Cobalt
Yeah.
is the trace mineral at the center of B12. And no one talks about that. So Standard Process has a product called Trace Minerals B12, and they add B12 into it for the cobalt, the tiny bit. Isn't that interesting? This toxic metal, cobalt, but when it's attached to a vitamin complex, is good for us. That's like a head scratcher. What? What?
Because of copper, to get too much copper.
Oh, yeah. So I was talking to a client about this today. So I used to use a lot of the Bernard Jensen liquid chlorophyll, World Organics. Remember that old World Organics brand? And I had a result with someone that, so that's a sodium copper chlorophyllin. So people don't realize so yeah, I haven't seen a lot of research on the long-term use of it orally, and if your copper levels are bad or good. But I will tell you, people are getting results with it. And I'll tell you one I got with a local guy. He had MS and his whole lower body was paralyzed. And so they would just turn him in bed, right? He got the bed sores. And they had this open bed sore that no one could heal. And the nurse, they went on referral to me because I heard I was a wound guy. So the nurse is like, hey, these doctors they don't know what to do with him, and they're going to actually give him surgery, and they're going to take a piece of skin off of his ass and put it up there. And I'm like, oh God, that sounds horrible. Because he wanted to be able to walk again. He still had hope, and the surgery would make it so he couldn't walk. So I said, okay, nursey, go buy yourself a bottle of liquid chlorophyll from Staff of Life. It's hermetically sealed. So she brought it into the wound clinic and all the doctors were freaking out. She had the guy lay down and she literally poured the green right on the wound. I said, just open it up right in front of him, take the seal off, pour it in the wound, and they were all freaking out. And then his wound healed.
World Organics?
World Organics, liquid chlorophyll.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And the wound healed, and I was a hero.
So what did they do? Dress it with that every day and put a fresh gauze?
Like every 3 or 4 hours, they had to rechange it.
And it healed.
It healed.
How long did it take for it to heal? Do you know?
We
You're kidding me. I got a friend that's been going through this.
Days for one cell to mature.
pardon?
One cell to mature takes 28 days. for one stem cell.
Yeah, I'm just telling you what I was told.
Generally, that's what it is.
This is all going off so there's another story. A guy was doing tempura, he'd throw the tempura in the oil and an oil splashed into his eye. And he said after a month of putting liquid chlorophyll in his eye throughout the day, every day for 28 days, his eye, the wound on the cornea healed. Just straight liquid chlorophyll
Yeah.
right in the eye.
Yeah, they've got two. Have you ever had Morley Organics?
Yeah.
You're full of
They got
shit.
the spearmint and then they got the clean.
Oh, you don't want the spearmint in the eye? Well, that feels kind of weird.
Oh, no, they've done everything with my buddy. What happened is he got in a motocross accident. He's paralyzed from the waist down. So he's got one to the bone, open wound. Most of it's healed up now over the last couple of years, but it's still an open wound at the surface. And they've tried, what's that?
I have a liniment for this.
Really?
I have a liniment that's the Jethro Kloss all-purpose liniment. I've been making it for 25, 30 years, and it always works in cases where wounds aren't healed. It's basically myrrh, cayenne, and golden seal. And then I add the wound words. I add plantain, yarrow, and self-heal to it. A little bit to round it out.
I mean, he's been to so many doctors and had so many surgeries done on him, and a wound specialist coming into the house and changes dressings. And
Another thing, he's not getting enough zinc, protein, and vitamin C. If your wound isn't healing, you're not getting enough zinc, protein, and vitamin C. Those are the 3 nutrients you've got to have to heal wounds. So if he's eating crappy protein, it's never going to heal. Some people are reporting good reports.
He's bought an ozone machine. the
Didn't
whole
help?
bit. You know,
Didn't help.
they injected it in, no,
What about bagging the?
I don't know. I know that he did something, where it was injected.
You can send him over to me.
He's in Texas. He can't travel.
So you could talk on the phone.
Oh, okay.
I could mail him some.
Okay.
Just so he has hope. Like, hey, I could send him some.
Oh, no, he's,
Oh, actually, I got the reading recorded. So Thomas asked a question about a friend that has a wound that's really deep. It's not healing. So when you heard me respond, if you're watching the recording, it was basically we all know vitamin C. You need vitamin C to heal wounds, but what I didn't know is we also needed protein and zinc. And think about this gut. The gut has to be renewed every 3 to 7 days. And if you stretched your guts out from mouth to anus, it would cover a tennis court. So you have to renew a tennis court every 3 to 7 days in here. So people have leaky gut because they're not getting high quality C and protein. But that you need to renew your gut lining. Because carbs and fat don't make new tissue. Let's be clear about that. Protein makes new tissue, including connective tissue and bone. But they talk about calcium, but what's the scaffolding for the calcium? The protein shell.
right.
They used to call arthritis 100 years ago cooked food disease
Oh, from cooking.
from cooking your protein too much. So there's the value of the raw liver, the raw eggs, the raw meat, the raw fish, the raw dairy, the raw cheese.
Every day in my smoothies.
I mean, I started eating raw liver because of Drew Lewis. He brought up this bowl of raw chicken livers to a community dinner a few years ago, and I ate only 3 of them. It was the grossest thing I'd ever had. It was like shove them in, and that's all I ate, just do experiment. And an hour later, I was so full of energy and well-being, I went, I'm in trouble. I got to eat this shit.
I can't eat it.
Most people gag it back up.
I threw up at the dinner table. I told my mom I would. I said, I can't.
It's
eat that
hard.
stuff. And you're not gonna throw up. And so it was one of those things where you don't leave the dinner table until your plate's clean thing.
But that was a long time ago too. You have
I
to
was
say.
about 10 or 11 years old. But liver is just, and I've tried it since. It's just way too strong.
Okay, so here's what I tell my clients. I go, I'm the doctor giving a prescription. So you can take the prescription and get well, or you're not gonna take the prescription and stay unhealthy. That was my life. I eat the way I do because I want to feel good.
You want to feel optimal.
I don't want to eat for mouth entertainment anymore.
Right.
Because we're a nation of addicts of mouth entertainment. I'm gonna have a whole talk about this. The addiction of mouth entertainment, where the body's going, fuck you. Because we're the captain of all these trillions of cells, and they're listening to us every moment of our lives, and we're saying, you're not worth the effort. Because my mouth doesn't like taste.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I had 4 of their damn chocolate cupcakes this week. They're coming that pack with raw milk. And I figured, got raw organic milk,
That's what saves you.
and it's chocolate, which is a health food, and we won't talk about the sugar.
So he was just talking about, one of the things we've discovered though, when eating sweets from Germany and Europe is if you can have raw cream and or raw milk with your sweets, it generally helps.
Yeah.
So that was a good call on your part to have. And then
Well, you can't eat, they're so rich, you can't have them without milk.
the protein encourages glucagon and the sugar includes insulin. So glucagon raises blood sugar and insulin lowers blood sugar. So if you don't have if you have a pure carb meal, you're getting ready for reactive
Crash.
hypoglycemia. You're getting ready for a hypoglycemic crash. That's why people die in their sleep, because if the blood sugar drops too low when you're asleep. And why do you think people wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep? Because adrenaline raises the blood sugar while you're asleep, so you don't die.
Oh.
That's why you wake up thinking it's a hypoglycemic crash. The body says, shit. So I have a 36-year-old that died after he was last year, and he died in his sleep in Costa Rica, and he was a type 1 diabetic.
Oh, after injecting insulin?
We don't know how he died. The autopsy was very poor because he died in Costa Rica.
Oh, yeah.
And but he was and the family, I told him I've been best friends with this kid. He was a client. I warned the the woke family, and now he's dead. And it's like, I never say I told you so, but I looked at her and went, same thing with my family. Mom, so what we have is, a nation of people that trust the shepherd still. And the sheep trust the shepherd. And the shepherd's going, oh boy, food,
Well, if
manipulation,
you're talking about the
gaslighting.
shepherd being a Western medicine.
the government.
Oh, okay.
The governance is like the father in the Bible. It's the governance is like, the big looking over, and ideally that's what we want, the healthy masculine, right? But what do healthy warrior males get called? Toxic masculinity is the woke statement now. So men like us don't step up and are afraid because I'm a toxic masculine. If I use my sacred masculine and protect the women, children, and everybody,
You're a bad
then you're a
guy.
toxic masculine dude. And that's why I love some of these guys coming out now and go, yeah, be offended.
Yeah.
How's that working out
No,
for you?
that-
You can be offended. I'm not going to change.
There's pushback. Right.
So my pushback now is like, yeah, be offended. I don't care. You get to be who you are. You get to be who I am. My body, my choice. You don't like that? Get the fuck out of here. Well, the YouTube's not gonna like all this cursing right now.
I'm seeing just recently, since we're past the third, the booster, people are in their 4th and 5th boosters now. I'm starting to see comments online by vaccinated people that, oh, I made a big mistake. I need help. It's really starting to steamroll right now.
Right. I've been hearing,
And
I have
plus,
a
there's
brand
so
new
many-
client.
There's so many that are dropping right now that they can't hide it.
Right. So I have a client right now that came in. She's a dental assistant, husband, 2 kids. And she says, I thought she was one of us. So I'm like, hey, those those VED people, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, I'm VED. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then because of we spend so much time talking about this in the freedom group.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
look, I thought you were one of us. You are repentant, and so her job required her to, and they were going to fire her And that's what they hold over people's heads, right?
Yeah.
I would have quit
I would
personally.
have quit.
I would have quit. I don't, nothing's worth getting that in me, I would say I'd rather live under a bridge and be homeless than get that stupid thing. But that's what people do. They're not like us. So I said, look, if you're willing to go to God and repent your mistake, because it was a mistake, just like there's consequences for our choice. We got ostracized and bullied. So there are consequences for all choices. There was a mistake to trust the shepherd. Now we have to work with that. Because she was a colitis case. And I asked her, I go, did the jab aggravate? And she said, no, after the injection, none of my symptoms got worse. So I said, okay, you're probably saline group or low dose group.
It's that, and what we're finding out now is on the mRNA, they had to be refrigerated like minus 40 degrees. If they weren't refrigerated properly,
Oh,
and they thawed out and they didn't use them in a certain amount of time, and it's a pretty short time, they break down.
right on.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm sure with all the toxic
Yeah.
substances that we
Okay,
found
so
in
let
the
me
vac-
repeat that. So if you're watching the recording, we have that if the injections weren't refrigerated properly at a very low temperature, they lose their efficacy to manipulate our bodies.
Cole, did you ever see Ryan Cole?
Ryan Cole?
Yeah,
Ryan Cole.
he talks about that. He said they had it one time in a football field. And he said that everybody in that who's getting vaccinated were getting differing amounts.
Really?
Yeah, so it's all screwy, because like, they were all different reactions, all different amounts and all different. Potencies.
So the whole football stadium was like
Yeah,
a center.
I think they were doing it something like a football.
Like I won't mention a name, but the man over here just mentioned they had a football stadium set up and people were getting different amounts. And I have the lot number.
Mhm.
I have all the lot numbers now. So I tell people, if you know your lot number, I can plug it into my database and figure out if you were one of the targeted groups.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know the Native Americans were targeted. We know the minorities were targeted. We know that the big cities were targeted, especially New York, LA,
They targeted the
uh,
United States.
Portland.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know that by lot number, they were targeting certain population groups. We pretty much know that now. So this woman, she was repentant and she has hope now. She's on a path. She wants to change her job anyways from dental assistant to being a nutritionist. And I go, boy, you found the place. We got Monica, Craig, Anna, Dean Jackson. So I have a whole team, it's great. So I just want to finish because I don't want this to go on too long is just the sunlight thing. So mushrooms have a compound in them called melanin that you probably know about. And so they're saying that melanin, think melanin, melanocytes in our cells are what makes the pigment that protects us from the sun. And there's a hormone called MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone. And I have a big chart of this that Michael McAvoy gave me. And guess what's connected with melanocyte stimulating hormone? Epstein-Barr.
That's why it affects the African American population.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because of their melanin.
Yeah.
So they're totally targeted.
So this hormone has, it's a mystery. And then there's this, so if you consume mushrooms, apparently you are getting some sunlight. And then, so melanin, and then our melanocytes. So that's one way but then there's Sarah G got me on this on the Green Medieval. Thank you, Sarah G. Great articles. I went on Wikipedia, I got all my Western stuff, and I went on Green Med Info. And there's enough information to say that humans may use sunlight directly. We might use sunlight directly. And we're not talking about that. And they're also saying in these papers that our view of mitochondria and ATP is erroneous. That's not actually what's going on. And I'm like, this is great. Because they call it the Calvin, the Fenton reaction and the Calvin cycle in the chloroplast. So the plant actually does harvest sunlight. It takes sunlight and carbon from the air, oxygen from the air. See, to make carbohydrates, you need carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So a refined carbohydrate is a hydrocarbon and it's related to petroleum. A refined fat is nothing more than carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So that's why refined sugar and refined oils are so bad for us, because our body thinks of them as petroleum byproducts. They're hydrocarbons. That's why you need the trace minerals, especially potassium and sugar, and you need some of these other elements with fat to make them whole, because carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are acid forming. That's why all your major caloric foods, protein, carbs, and fats, they're all acid forming. And so what's alkaline forming? Fruits and vegetables that are very low in carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So if you think you need that balance, right? And then there's men like Jordan Peterson that throw it on the toilet and he's on an 100% meat diet. And he cured his autoimmune condition with it, eating 100% meat. Now that throws everything a monkey wrench in, doesn't it?
Well, Christine in the group,
Yes.
you ever talk to her about how
She did it too, didn't she?
She had the pure fat, dude, raw. I mean, big chunks. And you look at her skin, she's like, I don't know, well into her 70s.
She looks
And
great.
she's got this smooth looking skin
So,
and raw meat. She was eating raw meat too.
no, that's the secret. I'm telling you. So, Augenus von der Planitz
Yeah.
wrote a book called We Want to Live a couple decades ago. I read it. And so his son was dying in a coma and he mixed half raw honey and half raw butter. His son's in a coma in the hospital. And he's dripping it down his son's throat
Right.
while he's in a coma. And he recovers because of that.
It was honey and what?
Raw butter, raw honey.
Raw butter, raw honey. Oh,
And then when the kid woke up, he had a cooler of raw hamburger.
Yeah.
So he's feeding him raw hamburger, raw honey, raw butter. And the doctors are losing their minds. And he got well.
my father, one of the first jobs he had was a butcher. He was a butcher's trainee, actually. When I was a kid, when I was about 10, he brought home some stew beef one time from a butcher. It wasn't like packaged.
Yeah.
And he put some salt and pepper on it. And he was eating it. And he actually got me to try it. And I really liked it. But I don't trust any of these butchers.
Well, they're putting citric acid on this meat.
To sterilize it, really?
They have to get USDA approval.
So their stew beef safe to eat raw here?
No, I'm saying it is safe, but it's got citric acid in there.
But it's about that the farmer's market.
I've eaten raw meat from any kind of store and I've never been sick.
Really?
Never.
You know, funny one, my cousin told me one time, you're drinking raw milk, you know how dangerous that is? You could die. And I said, I've been drinking Webb's farm milk for like 15 years.
Oh
you
my
know?
God.
Never heard of anyone getting sick. from
Never.
farm milk.
No, never.
And all she did was run it through a big coffee filter thing that she had that fit in this canister that she poured the gallons of milk through, just to filter the cow hair out of it. You can't help get
Look at that look. So he was talking about, getting back in the day. What they did was it's the inversion, right? Pasteurized milk, actually, here's the deal. So when you pasteurize milk, it is sterile, true, for a short period of time. But as it sits, the coliforms build up.
Yeah, it starts
But when raw milk
bad.
never goes bad. How do I know that? Because I put a quart of Claravale raw milk out, open it up and then put the lid back on, took a glass quart of Strauss pasteurized milk, and then I let them sit out for 2 or 3 months. And they were all, so the pasteurized milk had purple fuzz and it smelled like death. And the raw milk smelled like cheese
Yeah, like
when I opened it up.
yogurt or something.
So hold on a second. So in Russia, I have clients in Russia and they used to call it clabbered milk and they would make cheese out of it and give the whey to the cows or the pigs.
That's the best part.
So-
That's my favorite part.
Right. So raw milk, in a sense, then the good bacteria helps. That's why it gets sour, because the lactic acid is building up, because that's the bacterial shit, because they're eating the carbohydrate and pooping out lactic acid. That's why it sours. But if you have pasteurized milk, what they don't tell you is 3 to 5 days after it's pasteurized, the raw milk is beating it by a mile.
Yeah.
And that's when you're actually buying it. You're not buying it right after it's pasteurized.
That's like, I drank, had raw milk here in town and it smells bad, but it doesn't taste bad.
Right. It has that cheesy
Yeah.
smell.
Yeah.
Right. Americans just aren't used to that. And raw cream.
No,
And people don't like the smell of raw cream. They go, oh, it smells cheesy. And it's like, I can't drink pasteurized cream. It tastes like plastic to me.
Yeah.
After I get raw milk, raw cream, I'm like, ew, I can't even do that. Pasteurized cream now. That's fucking. Well, you had a question?
I was in Washington State, and I was in the district court, and I was looking up this case, so I was looking at motions and driving. And so they had this case on naturalization. And because the case was about naturalization, and they used an ATAG washing machine injector and created a bubble, and that bubble, there was this very sophisticated argument. There were hundreds of people dying, elderly people, whatever. No,
Drinking the pasteurized milk.
because there was a bubble and E. coli. So the bubble had E. coli, and people were dying. So going to the store and buying pasteurized milk, those cases closed. I got in on it early, and then it was closed off. We get out of hand. Raw milk has some advantages. I used to drive all the way up to the farm and get some raw milk and make deeper milk out of it.
Right. Yeah, I do too. Paul does too.
Yeah,
You know, and you get the ability to
coconut.
it'll help.
Delicious.
Everywhere else, whatever they are. So I don't think the human body is really set up anyway. Because most of the things I found about milk, looking at PubMed, the national.
I was just saying we have to type people, and because we're having this discussion right now about, red meat might be bad for you and arachidonic acid. And we have this myopia of focusing on these chemicals, but red meat is a lot of stuff. And arachidonic acid is one tiny piece. And so I don't even want to field those kind of arguments because they're myopic. And just like ascorbic acid, that argument, it's myopic, So there's all kinds of red meats. There's deer, there's elk, there's moose, there's cow, bison. So which red meat are we talking about? You're gonna lump them all together and say they're all bad? Forks not knives bullshit, China syndrome bullshit, all those brainwash studies, because the people at the top are not interested in us being healthy. They're interested in managing us in the hospital on drugs the rest of our lives. If that's not clear to you now, man, your IQ is like in the dirt.
Speaking of studies, if you haven't had your vaccine, you're more prone to get into an accident.
Yeah.
It's all over the internet right now. They're pushing.
It's
If
the last
you're not
because
vaccinated, you're more prone to get into an automobile accident, and they're in Canada, they're jacking the rates up. In Canada.
well, that's what they're gonna keep because they've been cornered. They've been cornered. The data is out. Just not a lot of people have seen it yet, right? Anybody on Twitter saying you need to be vaxxed. I've been looking at the threads. One guy was saying, everybody who isn't jabbed, you're fucked. Guess how many comments there were?
Oh,
2,000.
yeah.
2,000 comments. Fuck you. You're a piece of shit. You know what you're talking about. And I'm like, this is what we need on Twitter.
Yeah.
This is what we need on
Yeah.
Twitter.
No, that's
is the pushback from the people who know. Because they were all silenced and now they're out because of whatever that dude Elon's doing,
The best channel to see what's actually going on is called Died Suddenly on Twitter.
Died suddenly. I haven't been to that one.
Died Suddenly, and it's D-I, capital D,
Is that correct?
and then capital S for suddenly.
Is that the big Morgan?
It's they've got links to, I think there might be the people that did the video that wasn't done that well by Stu Peters.
All the athletes dropping dead.
Yeah, they made some mistakes there. The blood clots are legit.
I'm seeing that the movie
Yeah,
is about.
yeah.
I have seen coroners though say that that's normal.
I'm going to just finish this off just by mentioning the vitamin D thing. And so we talked about melanin. Remember, there's recordings about this, but the other two, so the nutrients that are tied in with D is vitamin A, which is your real sunlight vitamin. So if you want to raise your hemoglobin levels, guess what you need? Vitamin A, not iron. Iron is toxic to the body. You only need 1 milligram a day, and most of the supplements are giving you 5 to 15 milligrams of iron. Your body can take in iron easier than getting it out. Let me finish. Because it's being recorded. And then so vitamin A and vitamin D have a relationship. So if you're going to do a vitamin D test, you need to do a vitamin A blood test, an active form of D, and a storage form of D, and that will tell you your true fat soluble sunlight vitamin status. But that panel will cost you $150 out of pocket because medically they make it very difficult to get it. They don't want you to know the truth. And then what's also tied in with it is another vitamin no one's ever heard of. It's called vitamin F as in Frank.
Mm.
You ever heard of vitamin F?
No,
It's part of the E complex, but they couldn't synthesize it in a lab from cheap chemicals, so they deemed it a non-vitamin back in 1930 something.
Where do you get it? Where do you get it in nature?
It's hard to get it from food. Flax has a little bit. What our ancestors did, it's a sunscreen vitamin. It's an antagonist to D. So what our ancestors did was they would soak barley, or there was a couple other grains, and that Rejuvelac thing,
oh, yeah,
they would drink the barley water and they would get sunlight protection, sunscreen protection.
Wow.
that's how they made beers. They probably got it from beers too.
So Standard Process has a product called Cataplex F that's been in use since 1940. And I have not used a sunscreen in over 10 years. So when I go in the sun, I take the F and I never get sunburned. As long as I get it in every hour, I'm a surfer.
And what do you take every hour?
Cataplex F, which is the vitamin F concentrate from Standard Process.
Ask Suzanne and helps too.
Yeah, it's like, that's-
So what F does is the action of D says, take stuff out of the gut and get it in the bloodstream, like calcium. That's why he said take D with calcium. That's the action of D, is get it into the bloodstream. So what's sunstroke? When you're in the, what's sunstroke? What is that? When you're in the sun too long, what is that?
Oh, you lost all your salt.
No, it's vitamin D toxicity because the hormone's too high. What you're talking about is a downstream effect. The top level effect is, because in college, I would go on the beach purposely to take a nap because I would get tired. Because all the resources in your skin go back into the bloodstream when you're in the sun too long, because the action of
Oh,
D
yeah, it is.
says put it back in the bloodstream. So F, the action is put it into the peripheral tissues. The action of vitamin F is the opposite of D. Take it out of the blood and deposit it in the tissues where it's needed.
Do they have F there?
No.
I didn't think so.
No one even knows about this except a few of us who study all the way back when vitamins were being named and go, oh, look at that. They couldn't synthesize that one cheap from a chemical. So they deemed it a non-vitamin. See, so F is tied in with it, A and D. And then, so you have to look at the whole fat soluble complex. And so if you think of vitamin D, think of it as your sunglasses for your skin. Vitamin D is like your sunlight filter. Vitamin A is your sunlight harvester. So if you want to raise hemoglobin levels, you take vitamin A, not carotene. Carotene is not vitamin A. It's pre-vitamin A, and it's water soluble. Retinol is fat soluble. So if your liver ain't working and you see orange skin or orange in the whites of the eye or yellowish, that's jaundice because your body isn't processing carotenoids into retinol fast enough.
Too much.
So we have a lot of learning to do because I see vitamin A on vitamin labels and it's all carotenes. No, folks, that's a mislabeling. That's not vitamin A. It should be labeled as beta carotene or carotene. And that's where the vegans get messed up. You see these vegans doing all this carrot juice and whatnot, but they can't convert it to the fat soluble form, so the skin turns orange. All right. So if you want more information on this, we're going to go offline now. And hope you enjoyed our short talk tonight on how humans harvest sunlight. There'll be a recording posted from the Weston Price talk in the next few days.